Welcome to your Houston Rewind for June 19th through the 23rd. I'm KHOU 11 digital anchor Brandy Smith. We know catching up on the news can be a little overwhelming in a city like Houston where it just doesn't stop. So every weekend we take this opportunity to fill you in on some of the stories you may have missed. Let's rewind. A big shakeup in the race for Houston City Controller on Monday. Three-term council member Michael Kubosh announced he's dropping out of the race because of health-related issues. But that announcement comes as our Jeremy Rogalski was investigating how Kubosh spends his campaign funds.
We found thousands of dollars in campaign expenses used for family parties and charges related to family vacations. How do we know? There's video evidence.
The most important thing you'll ever have in life is a family.
On his 71st birthday, Michael Kubosh thanked his family for celebrating at a Houston steakhouse. Records show he charged the $634 tab to his campaign. It's just one of several family meals listed as food and beverage expenses on his campaign finance reports. We also looked at out-of-state family trips, like this one in Wyoming.
Glenda's driving, there's Randy in the back. So.
All right, and this is a street.
And we found campaign expenses during the same time frame. A $420 rental car charge and $168 for airport parking. All told, we found 20 questionable campaign expenses over the years, totaling more than $7,500.
This is purely entertainment and recreation, and exactly the thing that the Ethics Commission said you can't do this with your campaign dollars.
So what does Michael Kubosh have to say? His brother and campaign treasurer, Randall Kubosh, is taking the blame, saying he may have inadvertently miscategorized several items and calling it an accident on my part. Randall Kubosh has now filed corrections for all of the expenses KHOU flagged, revising items like food and beverage expenses to loan repayments, now claiming Michael Kubosh used his personal money loaned to his campaign to pay for those parties, not other people's donations. Campaign finance attorney Andrew Cates.
In my estimation, I don't think that they can go back and claim it after the fact and correct it. And in fact, one of the statutes specifically has a subsection that says this cannot be cured by correcting after the fact.
It will likely be up to the City of Houston's Ethics Commission to weigh in on all of this. We reached one commission member today who agreed to review our findings. As for Michael Kubosh, he tells me he'll sit down for an interview tomorrow. Jeremy Rogalski, KHOU 11 investigates.
That interview didn't happen. Kubosh tells Jeremy he'll sit down for an interview when he regains his strength. We'll share any updates at khou.com/investigations. Drama in Austin led to the death of dozens of bills passed by the legislature. Governor Abbott struck down 76 bills by Sunday's veto deadline, all because of a fight over property taxes. He thinks that should be the top priority, but that's not Abbott's only focus. Adam Bennett explained Monday.
Within 24 hours of the special session starting in May, both the Texas House and Senate passed bills to cut property taxes.
Inflation administrative tax.
But the House then immediately adjourned.
The House gave us a take it or leave it deal on day one,
leaving the ball in the court of Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick's Senate. During a news conference in Houston last Tuesday, he refused to budge on that chamber's plan. It would lower tax rates like the House bill, but also raise the homestead exemption.
So bottom line, if the homeowners don't get their $100,000 exemption and their $1,200 to $1,400 tax cut every year for the rest of their lives, there will be no property tax cut for businesses.
The next day, 4 days out from the veto deadline, Governor Greg Abbott told reporters without a deal on property taxes, he would keep striking down bills.
And with each passing day, there'll be more vetoed that simply are not going to make it to the finish line.
Today, on the other side of that finish line,
that's devastating to see really good bills being killed for politics.
Democratic Representative Ann Johnson of Houston saw the death of one of the bills she sponsored, Senate Bill 796.
I don't see why it should have been vetoed. It was overwhelmingly supported in both the House and the Senate. Again, it was about protecting Texas consumers under Texas law rather than New York law. And I thought we were always about protecting Texans.
Other bills vetoed include those dealing with water conservation, making voting easier for people with disabilities, and expanding protections against human trafficking. The legislature cannot override a veto after the session ends. Any bill not vetoed or signed as of Sunday automatically became law. Check out more coverage of KHOU 11 at the Capitol by visiting khou.com/politics. Celebrations across the greater Houston area and Galveston marked Juneteenth on Monday. An event at Congregation Beth Yeshurun included recognition of Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. She authored and championed legislation that led to Juneteenth becoming a federal holiday. KHOU 11 photojournalist Brad Driver spotlighted the festivities.
Juneteenth is a remembrance of how we came out of slavery and how to honor those who continue the fight. Today we honor Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Juneteenth teaches us about our past. It makes sure that we understand what is current to us, and it also ensures that we will preserve our future. It's a day of solemn honor. It's a day of celebration. It's a day of remembrance. And above all, it's a day of humanity.
It was in Galveston, Texas, where the largest deposit of slaves were, when General Granger landed there in Galveston to announce that the slaves had been freed over 2 years earlier. It took that long. And so we understand that Texas is the birthplace for Juneteenth.
So now, at this moment in time, we can stop and take a while to reflect upon who we are, who we used to be, and who we will be in the future.
Streaming now wherever you're watching this, our special Juneteenth 1865 to 2023 Freedom to Learn. The documentary focuses on equality in education, past and present. We also take a look at how Juneteenth is being taught in schools today. No breaking news here, but this week has been sweltering with temperatures hovering around 100 degrees. That extreme heat is wreaking havoc on Houston area roads. Tuesday, concrete buckled on Highway 6 near Manville, and a large hole opened up on the Southwest Freeway feeder road near the Chimney Rock exit. Maria Aguilera caught up with TxDOT crews making temporary repairs.
The extreme heat in Houston blamed for causing concrete to buckle. On Highway 6, a major corridor shutting down main lanes between Manville and Alvin. TxDOT crews working for hours to get it fixed.
What we're doing is we're cleaning up the concrete, removing that broken up concrete, and then patching it as best as possible. Then we'll go out there at some point and we'll do a more extensive repair.
And on the Highway 59 feeder at Chimney Rock.
Now I got 2 flat tires and only 1 spare. And it's like the hottest day of the year out here.
Drivers unexpectedly coming across some broken concrete.
I was on my way home from work. Take my usual exit I always take.
We do have these types of issues at different times, but we're seeing a lot more frequency because of the heat.
Danny Perez with TxDOT says in recent days they've had 5 to 10 breaks. And there are a few reasons for this.
So when the rains impact those particular parts of the pavement, then over time when the sun comes and we have the heat that we're having currently, it could cause a problem for that pavement to start to break up.
The biggest break they're dealing with is on Highway 6. But Perez says they're seeing more breaks on frontage roads, but also some ramps and main lanes.
TxDOT's advice for drivers is to pay attention on the roads as we're seeing more of these breaks, and to make sure to report any issues you come across before they get bigger. A Houston man is desperate for answers after he says the city of Houston took $7,500 out of his bank account. He'd set up auto pay for his water bill, but was disputing the much higher than normal bill. He told KHOU 11, even after promising his account would not be charged, the city took the money anyway. Anieli Ruiz tried to get answers for him.
Carl Castoreno still can't believe the huge water bill he received for his 1,500 square foot home in East End.
My bill's usually $45 average. It's never been over $100.
But his bill was thousands of dollars over his average. And when he called the city to figure out what was wrong, they told him
everything's going to be handled. You can't do anything right now. All you can do is wait.
His account was frozen. He said he couldn't even remove the auto pay from the account. But he says a city worker promised him the money wasn't going to be taken from his account. But this weekend, he says, that all changed.
I got a $7,500 bill from the city, and they took my money. They just took it like that. Panic? It's confusion. How could this happen?
The odd part, he says, his bill in February went from negative 196,000 gallons of water used in 1 month. Yep, that's a negative sign. To 89,000 gallons used in May. And just his luck, he says, this past weekend, the city's water bill website was down. In a panic, Carl began calling everyone to get answers.
I wish they would just talk to me.
In the meantime, Carl says he's stuck in a stressful financial situation and hopes the city does their part to get the issue resolved soon.
But I really hope they make it right as soon as possible, because I got mortgage payment. I have my kids to pay for. I'm scrambling, just to work more, just to try to recoup the funds for now until they fix it.
The city told Anielli it will do a full review and hopes to get back to us in a few days. As I'm recording this Friday, we don't have any updates. Childcare is expensive, no sugarcoating it. But a Houston daycare is trying something new to help single mothers struggling to make ends meet. Stephanie Whitfield took us inside Project One Day.
Jennifer Gomez has her hands full.
What happened?
She's a single mom raising a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 4-month-old.
I'm serving at Pluckers, the wing place, and I'm studying to be a medical assistant.
She's able to do that because of Project One Day. It's a daycare pilot program that Jennifer Johnson says works.
Yeah, it fixes a lot of problems, this model.
The model puts parents to work. They provide training, then single moms volunteer as an assistant teacher 1 day a week. They get free childcare for babies and toddlers the rest of the week in exchange.
Daycare on the low end for an infant runs about $10,000 a year, and the good kind runs upwards of $20,000 a year. And for most families, it's completely out of range.
The nonprofit Children at Risk recently built this interactive map showing where childcare deserts are in Texas. These are communities where low-income families are struggling most to find affordable childcare.
This neighborhood near downtown Houston is in a childcare desert. That means it's really hard to find good quality childcare. There are childcare deserts all over the Houston area, and it's even worse in rural areas.
Johnson believes this model is the answer to that problem. Right now, Project One Day only has space for 10 kids 3 years old and younger, but they're expanding in the fall, opening up spots for 35 kids. They already have a wait list.
The longer that list is, it'll make it easier for us to make another one, right? Because it shows the demand.
She says parent volunteers keep costs low for daycares, but most importantly, it allows them to get jobs and provide for their families, knowing their babies are somewhere safe. Stephanie Whitfield, KHOU 11 News.
Donations are pouring into a GoFundMe covering the funeral expenses of a rising TikTok star. Brittany Joy and her mother died in a crash on the way to a Juneteenth event. Sherman Chow talked to family still reeling from the loss.
Yeah, the accident happened Monday afternoon about 3:30. Mother and daughter were pulling out from the side street onto Tidwell when the accident happened. Their Honda and a pickup collided, sending the Honda slamming into a tree just blocks from their home. 35-year-old Brittany Joe Murphy and 53-year-old Sherry Smith were killed. Tiffany Cofield drove up on the accident scene, terrified when she saw the familiar car. I couldn't believe it was my mom and my sister. Last night, family flew in to help, including Marcia Gregory, who lost her daughter and granddaughter.
She brought so much joy to all of us. Joy was her name.
Brittany Joy was her TikTok handle, where she made funny videos about work. She gained 400,000 followers in half a year, including her own grandmother.
I saw some of the TikTok. Matter of fact,
She made her a
She
TikTok.
made me start doing TikTok.
Brittany was on her way to a Juneteenth event that day to meet a fellow TikTok influencer, Mecca. Mecca explains the secret to Brittany's success.
Unfortunately, most people don't like their 9-to-5s, so kind of the way she carried it in terms of just like, like it's such a drag, I gotta go to work. And she always found ways to incorporate like whatever was going on into the videos. So she was very relatable and very humorous, and everybody loves to laugh.
If she was still alive, she'd still be doing that great content and making people see that 9 to 5. That was her brand.
2 other vehicles were involved in the accident. No one else was seriously hurt. No official word yet from police on exactly what went wrong. Here in North Houston, Sherman Chow, KHOU 11 News.
Prosecutors identified the man who they say orchestrated a voice cloning scam we told you about a couple months ago. They say they did it the old-fashioned way, following the money to a bank account in New Jersey. Grace White delivered the news to victims in a similar case who say they're happy to hear someone's being held responsible.
I was surprised to start with because I didn't expect that to happen.
I first met Fred and Kathy in March after they were called by a man claiming to be a public defender named John Steinberg, who put someone they swore was their son on the phone, asking for thousands of dollars to get out of jail. Now the couple's learned Houston police charged a man in a separate case, a case where the scammer used that same attorney's name, John Steinberg.
That's scary. That's scary. And that it's sad that they're still doing it.
Prosecutor Sheila Hansel, who works in the Consumer Fraud Division at the Harris County DA's office, says they're aware of cases in Tennessee, Utah, New Jersey, and Texas.
It's a script. It's exactly the same. The actors involved, and there is a team. They all say the same things. It's the same story.
In that separate case from Houston, Hansel says they charged a man named Roman Guzman from New Jersey.
When you wire something, it leaves a very nice trail.
Hansel says in October of last year, a Houston woman got a call from a man who identified himself as that same attorney, John Steinberg. He said he was a public defender representing her son, and she eventually gave him $20,000 cash and then wired a second $20,000 payment. It's the wire they were able to track down.
It was kind of rewarding to actually put a face to the person who was taking that money out of the bank and have that person identified.
But Hansel says scammers like this don't operate alone, and there are likely more suspects, as well as more victims. While no one has been charged yet in Kathy and Fred's case, at least they now know investigators are watching.
I just hope that they all get caught so that they don't do this to anybody else. I mean, I just don't want them to take advantage of anybody.
Roman Guzman is charged with felony theft. The Harris County DA's office says it's working with law enforcement in New Jersey to find him. Our story, our history. Ahead of the 45th annual Pride Parade rolling through Houston this weekend, Ron Trevino met the African-American activist who made it his mission to make the parade happen.
Look at all those faces. Look at all those colors.
Hundreds of thousands of people descended on downtown Houston for last year's Pride Parade.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Pride Houston 365.
Deborah Duncan and yours truly were hosting as KHOU 11 streamed it live. It was the 44th annual, roaring back after a 2-year absence because of the pandemic. The theme was The Beat Goes On. But when did the beat start for this parade? It was in Montrose in 1979, Houston's first Pride Parade. The person who spearheaded the effort to get it all off the ground, Larry Bonaris Bagneris, a leader in Houston's gay community back then when times were extremely different.
I wanted the community to see this. I wanted them to celebrate the idea of being gay was okay. Back in those days, you're going to hell or you're going to jail. That's it.
Larry now lives in New Orleans, where he grew up, but says he makes it back to the Houston Pride Parade every year. Back in the 1970s, transforming the parade idea into a reality started with getting permits.
Actually, it was extremely hard. As a person of color, dealing with the Houston Police Department and being gay, to get the permit was quite a challenge.
He says he was finally able to convince the police department, but on the day of the parade, police would underestimate the crowd. They sent only 2 patrol cars for a crowd of around 10,000.
We had a wholesome crowd that had a wholesome time, that displayed love and affection for each other in a proper manner in a public sphere.
He wanted to give the Houston Parade a touch of New Orleans, mixing Houston creativity with a Mardi Gras vibe for an event that means so much to so many people.
The parade, even now, it's still very liberating for people?
Extremely liberating. I have friends, because of the heat there, there's heat here as well, say why we need a parade. We need a parade to continue to put the community on display so that people can know what type of community they had.
Larry Bonaris Bagneris. He'll be here for the Houston Pride Parade this weekend, a Pride pioneer, celebrating the event he fought hard to create. Ron Trevino, KHOU 11 News.
Wherever you're watching this, you can check out our latest Our Story, Our History special focusing on Pride Month. It highlights members of the LGBTQ+ community and looks back at the fight for rights through the years. Her heart stopped 7 times after a near drowning, but a Willis area toddler is bouncing back. Her family credits hospital staff, community support, and a lot of prayer. Jason Miles shared Elizabeth's story when she got out of the ICU on Thursday.
The toddler has been in the hospital since June 2nd, but may be back home as early as next week, thanks to what her mother considers a miracle. Inside one of the towers at Texas Children's, things are looking up for 2-year-old Elizabeth Alvarez.
This is a total miracle, the way she's come around.
Mother Destiny nearly lost Elizabeth earlier this month in this Willis area community pool.
Ah, goo, goo, goo.
8-month-old Carmen almost lost one of 3 older siblings.
Yeah, when I got her out of the pool, she looked like she had no life in her.
She says she found Elizabeth face down in the water after a momentary distraction, despite the toddler having on a flotation device, being in very shallow water, and with a lifeguard nearby who was first to administer CPR.
When we got to the hospital, she coded 7 times, and coding, if you don't know medical terms, that means that her heart stopped beating, like she had died basically 7 times.
This is a photo of Elizabeth taken shortly after her hospital stay began, hooked up to all sorts of machines. And now look at her nearly 3 weeks later, out of the bed, playing with toys and eating solid food on her own.
And she just got out of the ICU yesterday.
Alvarez credits her friends and many perfect strangers for raising money through this GoFundMe, which has allowed for, among other things, Elizabeth's father to take off from work to be with her at the hospital.
I don't know, honestly, what I would have done without my community.
She says the family will return home with Elizabeth more faithful, grateful, and mindful when it comes to being around the pool. As a result of this accident, I'm told many of Alvarez's neighbors have signed up for CPR training and a free swimming safety event this coming weekend. Reporting from the Texas Medical Center, Jason Miles, KHOU 11 News.
Drowning can happen in less than 2 inches of water. Right now on KHOU.com, you can see how to keep your little ones safe around pools, tubs, even the toilet at your home. Houston ISD's new Board of Managers unanimously approved its first budget Thursday night. Teachers and staff have been waiting to get a look at the budget because it could determine the future of certain programs. Zach Tawatari dug into what the new superintendent promised is whole-scale systemic reform.
It was a much different atmosphere entering HISD's third meeting, but tensions weren't gone altogether.
We want to be heard, not patronized.
Speakers like teacher Michelle Williams were critical early of Miles' absence.
Our elected board members would never allow any superintendent to miss public comment.
And when he did show up, he got an earful.
What it does is it sends a message of disrespect and unprofessionalism on his part.
For much of the meeting, Miles presented his Destination 2035 plan, which included framework for what he called whole-scale systemic reform, which he says will start with a subset of schools. His presentation included, among others, changing instructional model and the curriculum, cut down size of the central office, hospital model for teachers, includes giving teachers their lesson plans, and as he says, treating teachers like doctors, taking more responsibilities outside of teaching off their plates. The Board of Managers then voted on the 2023-2024 budget, which they unanimously approved. Several HISD elected trustees who are former board members were in attendance, like Sue Dygard.
I think they're coming in with some thoughtful budgetary changes that they presented last week, along with some cuts in order to fund those.
Kathy Bluford Daniels says data pointing to changes being needed at underperforming schools is nothing new.
We've been trying to draw attention to the fact that these kids in these campuses were lowest achievement and needed it most.
Next week, HISD Superintendent Mike Miles will start holding meetings with families to share his vision for the district. The first meeting is Tuesday, June 27th from 6 to 7:30 at Forest Brook Middle School. Then Thursday, the meeting is at Williams Middle School. There will be 8 meetings in all at schools all over the district. You can check out KHOU.com/education for continuing coverage of the HISD takeover. It's now official. Hispanics make up the majority of the Texas population. Ana Yeli Ruiz reviewed the new data released by the Census this week.
It's official. Latinos make the biggest demographic in the state.
We were not shocked. The Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce proclaimed this about 15 years ago.
The U.S. Census says in 2022, they estimate 40.2% of the state population in our state is made up of Hispanics, 39.8% white, 13.4% black, and about 5.7% Asian.
For all race ethnicity groups, there has been a decline in fertility rates over the last handful of years. Having said that, you do see higher levels of fertility among Hispanic.
But it's data that researchers say won't make much of a difference for cities like Houston, since we've already seen that shift over a decade ago.
In many ways, embraced that growing diversity.
But what many hope comes out of this is change for the betterment of Hispanics.
We know that we are still far behind in terms of pay equity, educational attainment, representation, seats on corporate boards. The list goes on and on.
Researchers also hope that local and state and federal government sees a shift and embraces this new diversity by offering proportional resources to all.
They should all have those opportunities to get access to the education, the training, the skills that are needed so that they are, able to continue to build and push forward the state of Texas and continue to keep the state of Texas competitive in the economy of tomorrow.
More interesting facts from the Chamber of Commerce. In Houston alone, 42% of all businesses are owned by Hispanics. That's more than 150,000 businesses. It's not exactly a river cruise, but did you know you can take a boat tour of Houston's Buffalo Bayou? I hopped on board to show you this week's hidden gem.
There's a whole lot to see from down here on the water that you would never see from up on the roads.
Lined by trees, trails, and animal tracks, this stretch of Buffalo Bayou makes it easy to forget you're in the middle of America's fourth largest city.
We look up and we just sort of can't believe where we are because we're going right through the center of downtown right now, but you'd never know it.
The nonprofit Buffalo Bayou Partnership wants more people to see the world, or at least Houston, this way. That's why it launched the Osprey, a tour boat complete with captain and deckhand.
You can get right on the boat from downtown Houston. It's easy, and boat rides are between a half an hour and an hour and a half, depending on how long you have and which tour you book.
Public tours, which start around $15, highlight the bayou's history, or bridges, bats, and other wildlife.
I was floored by how many animals are along this waterway in the middle of a giant historic downtown.
You can also book the boat and its crew for private tours along Buffalo Bayou.
It's the mother of all bayous in Houston, and of course bayous are one of the things that distinguishes Houston from other places.
I think if more people knew about Buffalo Bayou being this historic waterway in the middle of downtown Houston, that many more people would become involved or come and visit if nothing else.
The boat rides are a chance to escape the city without ever leaving the loop.
It's one of the ways that we as Houstonians have access to a whole bunch of natural resources, wildlife, plants, and a lot of natural beauty and green space.
We just released a new episode of Hidden Gems, highlighting spots all over Houston where you can check out downtown from above, support local artists, or learn about local history. Stream it wherever you're watching this. In an 8-1 decision, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled Texas can't sue over the Biden administration's immigration enforcement priorities. Adam Bennett broke down what this means.
Since Title 42 expired, federal officials say Border Patrol agents have averaged just under 4,000 encounters each day. We met Crispulo, a fisherman from Venezuela, last month in Brownsville. He told us he wants to work and send money back to his family and that he is allowed to stay in the United States for now. But an estimated 11 million people are here illegally. Today, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 8-1 that the Biden administration can prioritize deportations based on who poses the greatest public safety risk. That's different from the Trump administration's policy to remove people in the country illegally, regardless of criminal history or community ties.
Decision that definitely came as a surprise.
Cesar Espinosa leads the Houston immigrant rights group, FIEL.
That this does not mean that deportations are going to stop, just that the priorities have been determined to say we're going to go after hardened criminals first, and then after working class people.
The ACLU, which assisted in this case, said, quote, "This decision soundly rejects the misguided attempt by Texas and Louisiana to force the government to implement the most draconian immigration enforcement policy." Meanwhile, Governor Greg Abbott called the ruling, quote, "outrageous." He wrote that the Supreme Court gave the Biden administration, quote, "carte blanche to avoid accountability for abandoning enforcement of immigration laws." The governor vowed to continue using the National Guard to repel and turn back people trying to enter Texas illegally.
A big announcement from University of Houston alum Lizzo. Daniel Gutera found out what the pop star has in store for her alma mater.
All this week, Grammy Award-winning artist Lizzo has been handing out donations as part of her Juneteenth giveaway program. Well, today, it was the school that taught her a thing or two about music that got some recognition, too.
It's day 4 of the Juneteenth Give Back, and it's time to announce the 4th recipient of the $50,000 prize.
If you follow Lizzo on social media, you've seen these all week, announcement after announcement. $250,000 worth of donations given to Black-led grassroots businesses to commemorate Juneteenth. Her Houston Cougars, though, made the cut.
Me and the University of Houston have come together to create the Sasha B. Fluting Music Scholarship. It is for any young Black student from Houston, Texas, who has applied to go to University of Houston to study at the Moore School of Music.
Lizzo's ties to U of H have been plentiful since she left the school. These clips from her 2019 visit with the band are still very popular. The details of this scholarship, though, are still being finalized, but the school releasing a statement today saying in part, quote, "We are deeply grateful to Lizzo for her generosity and commitment to supporting the next generation of music students."
That was me just a couple years ago, a young Black flute player who just needed a scholarship and someone to believe in them. And now I get to pay it forward.
The scholarship recipient will be announced soon. You can visit LizzoLovesYou.com to donate and find out more about her programs to further music education. At the University of Houston, Daniel Gutera, KHOU 11 News.
Friday, the Greater Houston LGBT Chamber kicked off Pride Weekend with its Pride in Business Awards. Our own Cheryl Mercedes hosted the event, and Gerald Harris brought us the highlights.
On behalf of the Chamber, we would like to thank you.
Held during Pride Month, the 2023 Pride in Business celebration recognizes the role of LGBTQ+ businesses as well as allied businesses in our area. KHOU 11 partnered with the Greater Houston LGBT Chamber of Commerce for today's luncheon and award ceremony.
The Pride in Business celebration.
Our own Cheryl Mercedes hosted the event. Among the honorees, Shell, Harold's Restaurant, Dessert Gallery, and the British Consulate.
To all of today's honorees.
Wholesome Healing won Certified Business of the Year. They help clients get organized, healthy, and in shape.
Most people walk through life feeling that they don't have control over the choices that they make or the choices that are available to them. So I help people understand what they have within themselves to start building the reality they would like to live.
When it comes to Employee Resource Group, that honor went to Emma G. Bank.
I think the Chamber has been an incredible partner. It is so well led, and we get the opportunity to kind of function under their expertise, and it's helped us promote diversity throughout the bank.
Other winners include the Normal Anomaly Initiative, which focuses on the needs of the Black queer community, one nonprofit of the year.
I am what it looks like when community invests in community, and I know the power of that.
And individuals were also honored, like James Harris of HEB, Suzanne Brady Lusk of Coca-Cola, J.D. Dole of J.D. Dole Archives,
Linda Toyota.
and Linda Toyota of Lyft Fund.
Hope that helped you catch up on this past week and you're ready for the next one. Remember, you can tune into KHOU 11 on air, online via KHOU.com and YouTube, as well as by using our free KHOU 11 Plus app on Roku and Fire TV. Have a great week. Good to see you. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you'll see more of KHOU 11's coverage in your feed. And if you're not sure what you want to watch next, try this or this.